the planet is a living being in a certain sense, as is the whole of the universe. And we are the universe reflecting on itself, each of us as individuals. And that's a powerful image, because if you believe that you are the universe reflecting on yourself, then phrases like "do unto others as you would have done unto yourself" takes on a whole new meaning, because the environment is you. Also, another phrase, "know thyself," is one thing to know yourself as an individual physical human being, but if you think that to know yourself is the universe, then it changes the way you look at things.
Stick Your Neck Out, the weekly podcast of the Giraffe Heroes Foundation.
This is the Giraffe Heroes weekly podcast. We welcome you. Today it takes place at the Alquería de Moraima in the heart of the Alpujarra in the Sierra Nevada in South Spain. My guest is Chris Mellons. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
There are two topics we would like to discuss today. One is your general idea regarding the lectures, online lectures you have in mind to prepare to actually present your ideas regarding regenerative society in general. And then on the other hand, I know that things have to be brought down to earth, have to be practical, so we have a practical place to start to work on, and that is also here in the Alpujarra at Los Pollos. Yeah, so can you tell me how you derived the idea of this lecture series?
Yeah, sure. It's something that's been developing for a long time, not specifically initially as a lecture series, but kind of has grown out of my own personal lifestyle just over the decades, but particularly started evolving from about 2007, when I was involved with the University of Plymouth and the Centre for Sustainable Futures, and I was involved with organising a student festival that was based on the ideas of sustainability. And through that process, I saw so much learning going on with all the different students who were on not only teacher training courses, but across the university on all the different disciplines. They were coming together and learning things joining up bits of information from different disciplines and were developing a more of a holistic outlook. And one of the key things that came out of this was the desire of all of these, well, not just young students, mature students as well, to have active involvement with the environment. So simple things like chopping wood, preparing food together, doing some gardening, all kinds of activities in nature. And I could see that it was really enriching them as people and making them feel more connected to their environment.
Well, you mentioned the word sustainability, and that is something thrown around all over the place all the time. What is different with
lecture series?
In your case, it is just another sustainability concept or idea, or do you have a more specific understanding regarding this so-called sustainability? A lot of things can be sustainable.
Sure, yeah. I mean, for me, sustainability is not a particularly good word. To me, it speaks of survival or maintaining things as they are and keeping going. I mean, you can have sustainable slavery if you produce enough slaves, but that doesn't make it ethical or morally correct.
We are about to do that in our times, it seems, especially if you look at the refugees coming over from Africa, isn't it?
Perhaps so. For me, I think that we need to be moving towards a regenerative approach. I don't think I'm alone in saying that for us to, as a species, to develop and maintain a lifestyle of what we would call as decent these days, we have to be looking to involve ourselves with nature as a part of it, rather than seeing ourselves as disconnected from it still. And my feeling and experience has pointed towards the importance of re-engaging young people, especially because some of us older ones are already too far gone. But we need to be producing societies of young people that feel that nature is of primary importance, because it is. It's a basis of our existence.
You mentioned the word regeneration or regenerative. Could you explain that a bit? What do you understand under this concept of regeneration? What do you want to regenerate?
Okay, so I imagine that we need to be regenerating primarily the environment, but we need to be regenerating a sense of community in the human world, because it's more and more fragmented. The sort of drive of some cultures, not all, but some cultures, fragments family, work is more important. We're not basing our lives on the importance of other people. And if we manage to wean ourselves off our dependence on energy in terms of fossil fuels and the like, but actually reduce our energy consumption, one of the ways of doing that is involving more people to do things more by hand and less industrially. There's the value of industrialisation, but there's a danger that I think we're seeing now through the environmental problems. So more trees, more nature. I mean, personally, I would like to see all schools in all cities having school gardens with crafts, almost like rural environments inside cities, in schools, because then children in cities get a chance to have contact with that through those experiences. It's a pretty radical idea, but I mean, I'd even be interested in knocking buildings down to make a garden.
Right, but if I may interrupt, I mean, there are these Amish people in America living the same way they used to live when they came over some 200-300 years ago. Is that what you understand under the term of regeneration, or what is different in your concept from, so to speak, going back to an antiquated way of life?
Yeah, good question, and I've thought a lot about this. For me, there is an element of human development that's come about through the progress of science since the Enlightenment and the development of the scientific way of life and the individualizing of people, that I think is something that we don't want to lose. And I think that examples like the Amish are actually can be seen as quite oppressive cultures, because the demand to comply is kind of contrary to what I think that humanity has developed in terms of individualization. I think we are individuals for a reason. The planet has produced us and has produced the ability for us to be self-reflecting individuals, unlike many animals, or I mean, maybe I shouldn't be so, glibly say that, but there is a sort of quality of humanity that is able to self-reflect more than other species and be critical in our thinking and our actions. And I think it's something important to maintain, but what do we maintain it for, and how do we use those capabilities in benefit of the environment and in benefit of our communities? So I think the difference between us and Amish is living in an older period of, in a way, cultural evolution. And I think we need to be moving forward to what philosophers like Ken Wilber call the integral period, where we take the qualities of individualization and all of the previous qualities, put them together, and we become something new.
That sounds like a grand plan. How do you make that practical? To go back, I think you can elaborate in that context more on what you just called individualization, an individualization which apparently is not lost from more people. And on the other hand, again, how does that compare and go in tandem with regeneration? Because regeneration means you redo something, but apparently you want to do it in a different way than it has been done in the past.
To be honest, I don't think I've got what my ideas are not a be-all and end-all solution. It's not. I don't think we're in a situation like that. My primary drive is to try to encourage education in general, in compulsory education, to use that as medium to try and enable young people to have a connection with the natural world in a real, tangible and experiential way. A lot of the sustainability talk in schools at the moment is all in the head. It's all abstract. If you recycle, the world will be saved. Well, it's not like that. People make decisions in their lives when they're older as directors of businesses or bankers or politicians or taxi drivers or whatever, but they base their ultimate choices on how they feel. And unless they develop feelings of empathy for the natural environment, the decisions are going to be based on something else, which maybe doesn't take the environment into account properly. So it's this empathetic connection to the environment. Basically, I believe we need to re-find our connection to the environment. And as separated scientific individuals, that's been made difficult by philosophy, because from the Enlightenment, these ideas from Descartes, for instance, to name one, the world and the universe is just a machine. So you can't have a relationship with it. The story goes deeper than that, but we need to go, okay, we're in the world is a machine period to enable us to develop certain capacities and qualities. But now I think we start to need to recognise that actually it isn't a machine. The planet is a living being in a certain sense, as is the whole of the universe. And we are, in the words of Thomas Berry, who wrote a book called The Universe Story, we are the universe reflecting on itself, each of us as individuals. And that's a powerful image, because if you believe that you are the universe reflecting on yourself, then phrases like do unto others as you would have done unto yourself takes on a whole new meaning, because the environment is you. Also, another phrase, know thyself, is one thing to know yourself as an individual physical human being, but if you think that to know yourself is the universe, then it changes the way you look at things. It's not a narcissistic point of view, it's a point of view that includes everything, positive and negative.
I can agree with that. But matter of fact is we live in the age of the machine, as you have pointed out, which is actually coming out of the Descartes worldview, as you mentioned. Now, since we are living in this age, although right now, thanks to the pandemic, we have a lot less machines flying around at least. But nevertheless, Elon Musk is continuing to shoot his new machines into orbit, which is the most frightening thing of all. Anyhow, in that context, how do you imagine to reconciliate this age of the machine with what you call the age of the natural organism?
Yeah, I think there must be, based on the belief I have that human beings have been produced by the planet and that everything the planet produces has a reason, our ability to develop machinery and machine-like thinking has a reason. If we are able to find the balance point to connect the value of machinery, the value of industry, and all of those things which make so many people's lives better, with a conscious caring for the environment, what would the world be like? At the moment, we've got 7+ billion people on the planet, and it seems like a great proportion of the people, or at least the systems that everyone's involved in, are parasitic and destructive on the planet. And so humanity is a problem. Is it possible to imagine a world where humanity, as a majority, is a part of the solution?
That's the right question. Your answer.
For me, the only way I can see forward with that is to try and make people feel, or encourage people to feel, because you can't make them do anything, but encourage people to feel a connection to the environment. a desire to want to go and sit in the woods, a desire to want to farm organically, a desire to plant trees, it depends on your place as well. Obviously, you're not going to plant trees in the Arctic, but to find a meaningful relationship with your
with climate change,
it may
might well do so.
Maybe. I think the thing is to find relationship to place, understand place, and then work out what's the place asking for. And that's not a sort of, there isn't a medicine for it all. It's got to be, people have to feel it, people have to recognise, hang on, I'm part of this, the Earth's part of me, I'm part of it, we're part of the universe, but in terms of the planet, what can we do to make it better? If we can put the idea of what we can do to make it better to people, then maybe we might start finding some solutions.
That sounds convincing. Last question in this arena. Give a practical example, if you can, how you are going to convince a teenager to change his way of life, which is based on probably an iPhone consuming his attention for half the day, to what you say he needs to develop that consciousness for the environment.
Okay, one of the main directions for this has got to be education. There are now more than 50% of the population of the whole planet living in urban situations. In an urban situation, you're very detached from the environment. So how can we expect young people to find a connection to the environment? Obviously, families and parents have a role to play in doing that. But schools, I think, are the primary site to transmit these kinds of messages. And experiences I've had with young students of all ages, especially teenagers, because that's a particular period in people's lives where they seem to be feel more disconnected from the environment, mainly because they're tied up with their sort of developing their social lives and relationships with their peers. But when I have had the opportunity to take teenagers into nature-based situations and activities, invariably it's had a powerful impact on them if they've been doing it with their peers. So a simple example is that I taught a group of 13-year-olds in a school in the UK make basketry a number of years ago. And one of the questions that came to me from one student was, why do I want to make a basket? I can buy one for €1 from the Chinese shop. And I said, well, let's just go through the process and you'll see. And so kind of begrudgingly, he followed the rules of the classroom, as did the other students in his class. And over several days, he made a basket. And at the end of it, he brought the basket to me and was holding it in his hands and was just like, thank you, this is really good. And it was cool. And I think when children can transform something out of the natural environment into something that for them has value, that value stays with them. He doesn't now think, I can buy a basket for €1. He might go and buy a basket for €1 or £1, depending on which country you're in. But he knows how long it takes to make that, and he has a sense of what is going on behind the scenes to enable him to buy a basket for €1 or £1.
Okay, Chris, thanks. That was a really good example. And I think we are all looking forward actually to that couple or series of lectures which you are going to prepare, introducing a wider audience to this fascinating issue of individualization in a new way, sustainable in the sense of regeneration of lost understandings of the environment and the planet, as you say. So we are looking forward to that. At this point, I would like to briefly talk about a practical project we have here in the area, which is our actually ultimately bee reserve at and around Los Pollos up next to the national park at 2,000 meters up there. You know that area very well. You know that it has actually a quite ideal situation with water and possible reforestation. And to make that real nice, actually we want to start with that project next February, which is springtime here. You are part of it. Can you just introduce us briefly what you plan to do up there at the Refugio Solaio?
Well, my interest particularly in this project is the installation of any trees into the setting, because it's at the moment it's been used as agricultural land for a long time and pasture, has no trees, and I think that having a good tree regime is going to be good for the moisture retention, maintaining the topsoil, but more than that, it's going to offer bees a source of material for their hive building. So poplars, for instance, is something that I know that bees use to extract propolis from to use in their hive construction. To create an environment which is stimulating to people, I think that artistic planting, not in a formal sense, but more in an environmentally appropriate sense, will enhance the value of the place in terms of what participants in any courses or retreats that go up there will take from the space.
Could we not make that project part of your course schedule?
Possibly. I would say that even though I'm talking about creating a series of lectures online, that...
No, I don't mean the lectures now. I mean what the lectures are for, namely to bring the people to really do something.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is possible in any setting. With the ideas I'm promoting, the practical ideas, they need settings that can be developed with the pre-industrial tools. Environments need to be fixed in place, and something like this is fine for a small number of people, but my particular interest is to try and promote this to happen in schools everywhere, because we're at such a crisis point. If we have one little centre which teaches the ideas to 10 people, yes, they go out and they will then possibly share those ideas with other people, but really what we need to be doing is putting the ideas in place everywhere, in all schools, in all countries, as soon as possible, to start to develop a society of people who have a different approach.
I understand your point, but I would like to come back to that, since I happen to know that place up there and that project very well myself. Don't you think that it would make a lasting impact in a very special sense if you could bring a class from Ojiva or even maybe from Granada over for a couple of days or a week even to work there and see something really evolving?
I suppose, yes, it is possible. It would take a significant amount of development over a year or two, I think, to make it the kind of environment I think you're imagining. So yes, I suppose it would be possible.
That is actually my next question in terms of that, because the reason why I get back to that project is actually a project which we start to develop. So I would be keen to know what your take is on that, if there you also participate on the ground, and to make that place really what you envisage it should be. What is the timeline you would think that would take?
I don't know.
You shake your head, but I mean, let's not be timid. I mean, if you tell me 100 years, of course we can't do very much with it, but would we have to think in terms of 2-3 years or 10-20 years? Or anything in between that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as I've said before, I think for me it's the location. It's too far. I think that people are, I don't know, it just feels too far for me.
Well, this would be interesting for our listeners, because here I speak a bit pro domo. I love the place, and it's a fabulous hike up here from the Alquería to up there Los Pollos. It takes you not a day, but near to a day, and is wonderful. So I imagine that if you put that in the right program, there should be many people who would love to have that experience.
I guess if the installations are done such that it's comfortable enough for, especially for people who are accustomed to certain luxuries from cities' urban environments, then yes, I have a concern that I'm not sure of the right word, attitude, but I have a concern that there has to be a balance between shock factor and comfort. And I think that for me, I think I want to go gently with people and make it as comfortable as possible so that they can relax and then feel the environment, because the environment can be a harsh place and can challenge us in ways that can cause crisis. And this area particularly, I've noticed, tends to bring out crisis. And I think I say that because there's something about the rawness of this environment that makes people have to reflect upon themselves in a way that perhaps they don't do with the luxuries of modern living. At home, everything is piped in, electricity, water, gas, you can go to the shops. Here, in a situation like Los Pollos, you don't have any of that. And as a survival experience, it's one thing, but as an experience for developing empathy, I think we need to be gentle with people. It needs to be developed in a way that they can have a sense of warmth in their souls, if you like, to then be able to feel like, okay, the nature is worth protecting because it's good to me.
Okay, great statement, Chris. I think it really should take away the fear of people who come to join your courses, because for sure you will be a loving, caring teacher and keep out the too radical crisis potential. So this means you would love to do it here at the Alquería de Moraima, where we are sitting, 1,000 meters down from Los Pollos.
Absolutely. I mean, this setting is fantastic because you've got brilliant accommodation for people, which will make them feel comfortable as soon as they walk in the door. They will feel like, I can relax. When people relax, they learn. This is one of the problems with schools. Children often aren't relaxed. They're stressed, and so then they're expected to learn, and it doesn't work. A place like this, Alquería, you relax, you feel like you're held, you're being cared for by, and then if you then have experiences which are, can't think of the right word, enlightening experiences, yeah, but engaging and connecting experiences, you're more likely to let them in because you already feel held and you're protected.
Okay, that's actually a great statement, because our courses, as we even plan under this project, actually will take place here at the Alquería, and you will be part of these courses. So it is a lovely place here. In comparison, the place up there is really rough, I agree.
That's not to say that Los Pollos doesn't have value, but the power of Los Pollos is in its extremity.
That's right, and we will use that when time comes. So for the time being, I would like to just leave you the last word with what actually do you plan next spring up there at Los Pollos, which is part of our crowdfunding campaign. With that, then please give a final message or wish to our listeners.
Okay, well, all being well, the idea is that we'll be planning and installing an irrigation system based on a ditch system and a pipe system, so we have the old and the new working together, to maintain a large-scale tree planting operation, which will then act as windbreaks, act for shade, act as benefit for the bees, act for topsoil protection, and create a warmer kind of soul environment for people that go up there in the future.
Yeah, great, Chris. So what is your wish to our listeners, to our crowd, or do you have anything you would like them to do?
I'd like to feel that anybody who involves themselves through donation or through time, sponsorship to this crowdfunding campaign, feels that they're connecting into something bigger, that we're trying to make a kind of community, even though we might never meet each other. I give an example that I recently came across about the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly. When a caterpillar transforms itself, it goes into a chrysalis, and the inside of that chrysalis turns into like goo. And what transforms the caterpillar to the butterfly are the imaginal cells. What we need to be is imaginal cells, and we need to find as many imaginal cells as possible to work together to create the world that we think could be in the future. Let's think to the future. What could the world be like, and how would we get there? Because now is the time to act.
Okay, Chris, I think that is fantastic. So, dear listeners, I hope you have this imaginal quality so we all can be part of the butterfly to come and not stall where we are in the goo. So, thanks for listening and hope to have you back next week. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
Stick Your Neck Out, the weekly podcast of the Giraffe Heroes Foundation.